And a very good morning on this May the 12th, 2021. Let it be known, this morning we're going to talk to Anike Sakarawo. And I'm never going to say her last name right, but that's okay. She's an educator, CEO, and founder of SEEK, S-E-E-K, the Seeking Education Empowers Knowledge Foundation, a mobile and online nonprofit that services children from ages 3 to 18 in the STEM and STEAM field, health, fitness, and community involvement. We will learn more about SEEK with Anike coming up. But first, let us bring on, of course, our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavez. Good morning, Dr. Chavez.
Good morning, Stacy. How are you?
Doing great, Dr. Chavez. How about you?
Doing well. On behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, our distinguished chair, Karen Carter Richards, and our entire board of directors, we're getting ready now for our national convention, June 23rd through 26th. But on this morning, we want to welcome everybody to Let It Be Known.
Absolutely, Dr. Chavez, and let's get to the headlines. An Alabama police officer convicted of murder for shooting a suicidal man who was holding a gun to his head has been taken off duty, but he will continue to be paid by the city of Huntsville. Officer William Darby, who was initially placed on desk duty following the killing of Jeffrey Parker in 2018, cannot continue working as an officer because of the conviction and went on leave Monday. However, the city paid his $100,000 bond, and they will continue to pay his salary, and they have paid $125,000 toward his defense. He's out on bail. He's been convicted. He's awaiting sentencing. He can face as much as 25 years to life for the conviction in the 2018 homicide. It's stunning that Alabama, Huntsville, Dr. Chavez, is still paying his salary. They're paying his bail, and they are paying his attorney.
Well, again, that's the problem with policing, particularly when cops break the law and not really respect our community or any community. So all this is a part of the reform, the change in policing that has to be done. It's just another indication. What's going on in Alabama is not an isolated incident, Stacey. It's part of the system that's broken. It's part of systemic racism that has to be dismantled. And we have to, make sure that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act finally gets passed by the Congress.
Yeah, how important would that be? Could be a game changer. Dr. Chavez also in the news this morning proclaiming that healthcare is a right and not a privilege. President Joe Biden said yesterday that he's ensuring that every single American has access to quality, affordable healthcare that they need. He says he called it a national imperative. And since it became law more than a decade ago, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, has been a lifeline for millions of Americans. The president said the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it is needed and how critical it is that we continue to improve on it. On February 15th, the Biden-Harris administration reopened healthcare.gov to provide everyone an opportunity to sign up for health insurance through a special enrollment period. And yesterday, Dr. Chavez, the president announced that less than 3 months later, 1 million more people, including a large number of African Americans, now have affordable health care. In fact, the numbers show that the premiums are much lower, and also the cost of prescriptions and other things associated with medicine and healthcare the costs have reduced for a certain group, which has been disproportionately hurt by high and rising healthcare costs, particularly under the old administration, which, as we know, tried to dismantle and destroy Obamacare.
Absolutely. And I think that millions of people have benefited from the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And now the Biden-Harris administration is building upon that success and continue to expand access to quality health care in the African American and other communities of color throughout the United States.
Yeah, and so the new deadline for this special open enrollment period is August the 15th. So you still have a couple of months. And Dr. Chavis, the Black press has looked into this, and the costs have gone way down. It is truly affordable. We would encourage those without health insurance, those who might not have the greatest of health insurance, to look into this special enrollment period. Plus, Dr. Chavis, it also means that August 15th, extended it to August 15th, means that the new open enrollment period will only be a couple of months after that. It starts in October. So the new administration under Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris is really working hard and making sure that people are able to get vital health insurance coverage.
Absolutely. Well, again, the Biden-Harris administration, they're keeping their promise to Black America and to all people to improve the quality of life and healthcare and education and environment and all of the matters that impinge upon whether or not one can enjoy life rather than suffer through life.
Yeah. And Dr. Chavis, for the last couple of days, we've been talking about the PGA Tour, golf. Today, we're going to talk a little hockey. We're going to talk some more about the PGA Tour coming as we move forward. But we have some great news from the National Hockey League. History was made last night in Tampa Bay, Florida. On Monday, actually it was Monday night, Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper started 3 Black forwards during their final regular season game against the Florida Panthers. Daniel Walcott, Matthew Joseph, and Gamel Smith kicked off the game together at the center and wing spots, getting the news about the starting lineup just a few minutes before the game. And one of the Tampa Bay Lightning broadcasters says, for the first time, he proclaimed, ever in National Hockey League history, they have started an all-Black line in this league. A big historic moment tonight for sure. And ESPN commented that they deserve to be here. They worked their tails off. This is a quote from ESPN. To have them all together, they had a little chemistry. Moving forward in the league, you hope it isn't a story anymore and will be the norm. It was a pretty cool moment for all the guys. So for the first time in NHL history, 3 Black players put on the skates on the same team. So big moment, Dr. Chavis.
Absolutely. African Americans are striving for excellence in all of the major league sports, from NASCAR to National Hockey League, to Major League Baseball, to NFL, for the NBA, and across the board. And I think that we also see people ascending in golf that are African American and other persons of color. So, the demographics are changing, Stacy. The browning of America is not a future, it's the reality today. And so all of these major institutions in sports, in entertainment, in business, in healthcare, all of them are going to become much more prevalent in terms of not only opening the door for access, but I see African Americans making great strides over the next years as the economy and as the business are opening up, and people not only talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but begin practicing it.
Yeah, and Dr. Chavis, we always hear it, we know it, and especially in our community, we just ask for an opportunity, and just an opportunity. And
just open the door. All we need is the door open.
Absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, Dr. Chavis, great opportunities. This morning, we have a special guest, Anike Sakariawo. She is the founder and CEO of Seeking Education Empowers Knowledge Foundation, a mobile and online nonprofit that services children from ages 3 to 18 in STEAM education, health, fitness, and community involvement. Let's say good morning to Anike.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Anike. Thank you for joining the Black Press of America.
Thank you for having me. I really, really, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, so I wanted to start here because before we went live, we talked a little bit. We heard you talk about your name. Tell us about your name. Tell us what you told us about your father and pronouncing that name.
So I was explaining earlier, as a teacher, when I first started teaching in 2003, I would tell the students to call me Miss S. And so I think it was a parent. I don't know what day it was. My dad was out there and he said, "Why are they calling you Miss S?" I was like, "Because it's easier to pronounce." And my dad, he's Nigerian. So he's like, I don't know why I play his voice. He's like, "Oh no, Anika, you cannot do that." They learn how to say Czechoslovakia. They learn how to say all these different names. So you need to be proud of your name and make sure everyone who says your name, they learn how to say it correctly. And so from there, the students, they will always say, "Miss S," or Miss. I'm like, "No, you need to call me Miss Sakariawo." And so I started doing that, maintaining the name because that is my name. That's something I'm proud of, the name that was given to me from my dad's mother. And whenever a new student would come in class and they don't know my name, they would say, "You got to call her Sakariawo. She would not answer to Miss S," and it's spelled phonetically on the board. And so I just maintain, the name that I have, and I love it so much. I'm like, if I get married, I don't know if I want to let it go, but yeah.
I love that explanation, and love that the dad's voice that you gave us. Thank you for that.
I know.
So, Anika, tell us about Seek. You founded this wonderful organization. You're an educator, and you're hitting on the powerful STEM field and STEAM field. Talk about that, please.
So when I was teaching, I actually grew a love for science at the age of 26. And it was because I was thrown into a science classroom. Normally, good teachers know that if a principal calls you down to the office and asks you if you want to be in either reading or science, if you're a good teacher, they're going to put you in a one that has limited amount of teachers that are certified in it and or what's ever needed. So I was put into the science classroom. And from there, I noticed a lack of resources working at Title I schools. And from there, I was trying to figure out, how can I get these resources? How can I better myself? So I started attending a community college just to gain more skills of science, because my history was teaching kids with learning disabilities, which was inspired from my older sister who was autistic and mentally disabled. So from that path, I saw all the disparities and discrepancies with lack of materials at Title I schools in the science classroom, which prompted me to start the nonprofit Seeking Education Empowers Knowledge, which is Seek Foundation. In addition to, the type of food that kids will eat in the morning, they come to class with hot chips and that may be all that they have. And so I incorporated the health and fitness component where kids actually learn to grow their own food hydroponically, and they learn about nutrition with health and fitness, and tie that into the third pillar, which is community service. On Saturdays, we have the community that come together, parents, the science club with the colleges such as Florida Memorial University. We also work with FIU, where everyone come together and we learn how to build something that can be utilized and sent to another, either island or country, for those people that are in need to use. And some of the things that we have built, such as mobile AC units. We made deodorant, we made lotion. This was for the Bahama release when they had the catastrophic hurricane over there. So these are how all the pillars came up because of my own experiences as an educator and the lack thereof of resources and materials when it came to STEM and or STEAM education. I know that was a mouthful, so yeah, try to cut.
Dr. Chavis, she is accomplishing a lot, especially with the impressionable young ones.
Absolutely. One of the questions I wanted to ask Anika, we currently, the NMPA, we have a program with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation focused on education, particularly the effect now of COVID on the education of people of color, of young people of color. Can you just comment from your perspective, founding Seek, how has COVID either closed the education gap or is it widened the education gap from your perspective?
Well, I can see it in both ways in regards to closing the education gap and widening the education gap. So when we're talking about widening the education gap, I guess my term, when you're saying widening, are you talking about widening as in regards to technology and resources? Because during the COVID pandemic, from my observation, there were a lot of kids, even now, that still do not have access to a laptop. As far as February, we're open in Atlanta as well. A teacher reached out to me that she had a few students that did not have laptops or access to it in the month of February. That's like 3 months ago. And so it can be widened and it can also be closed. I mean, you have some kids that are receiving those laptops, especially when it comes to minority. You have those kids that are receiving the skills, but then you also have teachers that may not be trained on laptops. You have teachers that are saying, okay, this is the platform that we're using. We're going to give you about an hour on how to navigate through it, but don't actually receive the training on how to use different platforms to educate kids. And then you have children that are home that they say, oh, now we're exposing them to technology because they're on a laptop and they're misusing the technology of a laptop and they don't have materials at home. And then you have other schools where parents can drive by, pick up the materials, so the kids are truly engaged using materials and technology. So it can be a point where it's actually widening, where there's a lack of barriers when it comes to materials, experiences, and or how to transition from the physical to using technology. And then it can also be closed depending on if those materials are provided. If there's actually I would see the training, the effective training on how to teach kids, especially kids that learn different. We all learn different. So how are you addressing these kids that learn different, whether they have disabilities, whether they are gifted, whether they are ESOL, when it comes to a new space of learning? And so it all depends on how we look at when it comes to training, when it comes to the resources, which is number one, which would include training, and how these are actually being provided and or strategically taught to the kids, in which the content of what they're learning. So so I see it both ways, where it can be good and or bad, but based on data from minority children, like, they are still falling behind because they need hands-on, lack of resources, and the training. Even when it comes to teachers, when I hear the stories about 50 kids in a classroom online, with our program, we have no more than 20, and we have a teacher with a teacher assistant, and we mail out materials throughout the U.S. We make sure that kids and the instructor have the resources that they need to be effective in the position that they're in.
Very good. Thank you. You gave a very comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. Anike, you also do a lot. You work with African-American and Hispanic children on how to code and learn digital marketing so that they can compete in a world that is constantly changing with technology. Can you talk about a little bit more about coding and digital marketing?
Yes. So it goes back to my own experience. I remember taking up a class with code.org, and I was like, oh, I want to learn how to code, since I'm teaching science now. Let's, check this out. And so when I did it the first day, oh my God, we were sitting there for 8 hours, and I was like, I'm not coming back to this training. I can't take it anymore, just sitting there looking at a computer. But then I learned the value of it. I learned that coding produces these different languages that commands technology to do something. And how valuable is that when kids learn it at an early age? And so I began to go on a mission, because I'm always looking at data when it comes to education, when it comes to resources, even for myself as running a nonprofit and a few other businesses. So when I look at coding, I'm like, man, if I can teach kids how to code, they can be the next Mark Zuckerberg, because he built his first messaging app at 12. So that means he was exposed to it at an early age, if he actually built an app at 12. Or the next Benzo over Amazon. I read an article that they used to call him the little engineer because he took a loose electrical clock and put it together at the age of 8. So these are things and research that states that if kids are exposed at an early age with a familiar face, they are more likely to go into the field of science because they've been exposed to it. So teaching kids and showing them like, this is the world that we're living in. Look at your phone, all the different apps. Look at these cars that are driving without you putting your hands on it, such as Tesla. Look at the computer. So all of these different pieces of technology that we use on a daily basis, they have a specific language that prompts it to do something based on a request that you may touch or you may input or you may pull with a piece of technology. So it's been on my agenda to get kids to learn coding, especially African American kids and Hispanic kids, minority kids, how to code so that they can compete in a society that's constantly changing as the world changes with technology, and not just Java block script coding, because I noticed that a lot of kids, oh yeah, we know how to code, and there's nothing wrong with Java block script, but it's just more so of a drag and drop, and they understand the concept behind it. But then teaching them the popular languages like HTML, Python, C++ for video games, and just to get them more into that field, because data says that you have a lot of minority kids that are on video games as well, so they should learn how to build them.
And our publisher down in Florida, West Side Gazette, Bobby Henry says, he's asking, for those who might not know, what is ESOL?
Oh, I'm sorry. English language learners of another language. So English speaking language learners of another language. Yes. I'm sorry. That's true. So.
No, that's quite fine. Bobby's a publisher, a journalist. He's going to ask these questions. So yeah. I want to say good morning to Tawanda, all the way from DeSoto, Texas, and Joni King, David Youngblood, James Wright, Michelle Madison, and all those others who are watching us this morning. Anike, so tell us too now. I know, and David Youngblood, one of our viewers, brings this up. The government programs announced under Joe Biden's American Families Plan. Are you seeking access to any of these programs, or do you recommend educators seeking access under these programs?
I am definitely working towards seeking access for the program, and I believe it was recently released under the American Rescue Plan as well, where they allocated like 22.2 or $22.1 billion for an after school program to help kids gain whatever learning gains that they may have learned, or whatever effects that they may have felt in regards to academics over the course of the pandemic. So I am definitely navigating my path. That's one of my strengths. Like I know how to get it done. I know how to figure. I don't care if I need to call 1 million people, 10 million people, just to find out what needs to be done so that Seek Foundation can better service the community. So it's extremely important that you get to the local politicians and or superintendents of the school, because from what I understand, based on the conference that I sat on, it will be allocated to the different districts through the plan that was approved by President Biden. And then you will actually have to find out from your superintendent in your school district how the funds are going to be utilized for after school programs, for nonprofit organizations, and also the politicians of your community. So it's definitely a plus. And my only concern is to see how can people of color, like African American minorities, how can we navigate to make sure that we have access to those funds to help provide the resources and the needs that are definitely wanted for the community that we serve.
Yeah, and you know what, Anike, Bobby makes a point. He says we need more teachers with the spirit, love, and encouragement like you. Talk about that a little bit, because we are finding that teachers, more and more teachers, are either discouraged or they're just not as enthusiastic as, say, what you sound.
So I have a love for it. You have a lot of teachers that start out with the love, but from my experience, I felt burned out with the system, because it's like you have to teach every child the same. Like, okay, we all have to take this assessment. Let's drill them with questions. But I understand, and most teachers do, we understand that not every child learns the same. So when you're able to use your creative side as an educator, where you're free to teach different styles, and if you want to do this with music, if you want to write, if you want to publish a newspaper, give them these different opportunities to teach according to their strengths, and you assess them according to their strength. And so for me, I knew at some point I had to leave teaching, even though I'm still certified as a teacher, and I still do it on Saturdays prior to the pandemic. And so it's important for teachers to find like that outlet in teaching where they can actually be creative to maintain the happiness of teaching, because I love teaching. I love talking. I love the reaction of kids like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, Mr. Cariello. Like, oh, look what I made. Or so my strong advice, if you get to a point where you feel that you are like just losing the love for it, get into something else. That's what I did. I left. I'm still a teacher. I still work with the schools. I still help provide resources where it's needed. And so I would strongly recommend that teachers who do have that love, because we have some that just, they do it for a check, or they do it where they're in these programs and they get their loans paid off for the first 2 years or 5 years or whatever. So I would just recommend those who are in it for the love of teaching is to find an outlet that can allow them to continue to have that passion. And once they feel like their cup is not being full, they still can teach and be in that space. Just do it in another genre, another setting that allows you to still have that comfort and provide impact and change lives of many kids.
Well, thanks for that, Anika. Dr. Chapis, your closing thoughts?
Yes. Again, Anika, how can people get in touch with the Seek Foundation? We salute you for your entrepreneurship, your starting the nonprofit. And as you say, you've expanded teaching not only in the classroom, but then in the community at large. And it's affecting a large number of young people. You're like the guiding light. You turn on the light of striving to get a good education among students, but then you keep that light aflow by giving them new opportunities like coding and STEM and all the other programs that you involve. But this is a national broadcast, and I know people across the country will want to know, how can they reach you and how can they stay in touch with the Seek Foundation?
Absolutely. You can always contact us at our base number, which is 1-888-346-5552. If you want to talk to me directly, all you have to do is press extension 6. That will come to me directly. Again, the number is 1-888-346-5552. In addition to that, you can contact us on our website, which is www.seekedu.org. Again, it's www.seekedu.org, and you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter. And we are also on social media, Facebook. You can find us at Seeking Education Empowers Knowledge, or Seeking Empowerment, which is a shorter version. It'll pop up. In addition to that, on IG Live or Instagram, you can find us at Seek INC. Instagram is Seek INC. And on Twitter is Seek_INC. So those are all the numbers. Oh, if you want my email, my last name is very long. It's asacariao@seekedu.org. But you can always find me on social media. You can, contact me with the number that I provided you. I'm always open and available to chatting with people in the community to see how we can better serve everyone in the community.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Upcoming National Newspaper Publicists Association's virtual convention, which takes place from June 23rd to June 26th. Registration this year is totally free, thanks to Dr. Chavis and Karen Carter Richards, our chair, and the whole executive committee. You can register at virtualnnpa2021.com. That's virtualnnpa2021.com. June 23rd to June 26th is the convention, but register now. Don't wait. Let it be known, in the words of Marcus Garvey, if you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race for life. Have a good day.